Hi, welcome to Metal and Rock Zone, and there is once more new music, new album to review. And today I want to review The Cult. They have their 11th album, Under the Midnight Sun, came out today, Friday the 7th of October. And those of you who don't know Cult, they were founded in '83 in Bradford in Yorkshire in England. Yorkshire is where the people are rich in England. They say that Yorkshire men have, and women, and anyone in Yorkshire has deep pockets. So the founders are Billy Duffy, that's a cool name, that's a guitar guy. And Jan Astbury, who's also a great singer, has a very distinctive voice. Now, the band kind of started out in some way as an indie, post-punk, gothic band. I kind of got on the wagon because of my older sister. It's one of the few times that it's been beneficial to have an older sibling is when it comes to music. You get to hear music that is kind of above your pay grade. And she introduced me to Cult. And that was, '85. They came up with that album called Love. They had that song Rain and what's it called? She Sells Sanctuary. And then in '87 comes Electric, which has it's loaded with hits. It has Love Removal Machine, Wildflower, Born to Be Wild, the cover song, Little Devil. And this was really kind of like a basic raw rock and roll, kind of, I don't know, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin-ish, really straightforward stuff. And I think kind of one of the key reasons for that is that Rick Rubin was the producer of those albums. And a little quiz for you: you can win this amazing cap if you pick it up here in Prague. What massive thrash metal band did Rick Rubin produce, and what massive hip hop band did he produce? I'll give you the answer at the end. Now, this new album, it's the first one in 6 years. It's called Under the Midnight Sun. It's 35 minutes and only 8 songs. And if you want the old Cult, the Cult that I described, you're probably not going to like this album. The old Cult developed, obviously. Those 2 albums were kind of, I would say, the end of an era was when they came in 1989 with Sonic Temple, which was actually produced also by a big producer, Bob Rock, who did Black Album with Metallica, and he did Nelly Furtado, Michael Bublé. He's done Mötley Crüe. So that album, I thought with this band that they would become one of the biggest rock bands in the world. You had songs like Sweet Soul Sister, Sun King, E.T., Ciao Baby, and those songs. And these were epic songs, and amazing. This was such a cool band, Billy Duffy. Just the name, and then the guitar that he plays is this kind of country stylish guitar. So I was kind of like, okay, this is a band that will take off and take on the world. And but then the next album comes out on the same day as Nirvana released Nevermind, and we all know what happened. Kind of those bands went to the fringes, But they. And we went with, I went to the grunge wagon, I kind of left behind a lot of bands that I kind of regret having left behind. And this was definitely one of them, And so I wasn't, I knew that they were active, but I was busy listening to something else, and I never really paid a lot of attention to what they were doing. And then I saw that this album was coming out, and I heard one of the singles, so I got kind of curious. Okay, so what are these guys up to, and what have they been up to? And the last album was kind of they had Bob Rock again, so they went very much into the kind of the rock and roll thing, and I was like, okay, maybe they will come with another Sonic Temple, or isn't it called Sonic Temple, and but it's not. It's very different, and then I was like, why is this so different, and what is it that is different about this? And I started listening to it, and it's more of like an indie album. So in some way, they went back to the roots, and it has more of this kind of bass sound that you would hear with bands like Interpol, Killing Joke, the Editors, or whatever they're called, and White Lies. You know what I mean. And whereas the lyrics are super kind of gothic-y, dark, and I think it really fits Jan Asbury's voice. Then I was thinking, where is this coming from? I read an interview with Billy Duffy, and he said, on purpose, I left out the blues rock guitar from this. And then the producer of this album has been working with Ghost and Pixies, and that kind of made sense. And then I realized, okay, this band actually, no disrespect to the band, but they're heavily influenced by who was producing the album at each time. And maybe they, on purpose, bring in those producers because they want to take a different direction. Now, this album, the first listen, I wasn't super impressed. I came there for my old cult, you know. I came there for the stuff that my sister stuffed down my throat in the 80s. And then, there were 3 songs that caught on to me. There was this Vendetta X, and there's another one called, that has a really catchy chorus. There's another one called A Knife Through a Butterfly's Heart, because I didn't know butterflies had heart, and let alone that you can fit a knife through them. And that one has a very dramatic guitar outro and stuff like that. And then there's one called Outer Heaven that has very majestic strings and stuff like that. Funny thing about those 3 songs is that they actually, off the whole album, probably have the least reference to the cult that I fell in love with. So I ran it through a few more times, I don't know, 4 or 5 times before I kind of made up my mind on it. I listened to it on shuffle, in headphones, in the car. I did all my usual routine. And I started liking more and more of it. It's only 8 songs, so, you know, like, if you like 6 of them, it's already kind of makes a good album. And and there are kind of just like 2 songs that I'm not super fan of, but the rest of the stuff I actually found quite good. Now, of course, it's hard to live up to this legacy, you know, and you kind of, you know, like, we always expect these bands to bring back some nostalgic or some feeling that we had when we heard certain albums of theirs or certain songs of them. But so this made me curious, and I started listening to some of the stuff, more of the stuff that came in between. And actually, this album kind of fits well into their catalog. I can't say that this is the black sheep or the odd one out somehow. Actually, in some way, Sonic Temple was an odd one out. You get what I mean? I think this one is actually closer to some of the other stuff. So, and they said themselves that it took them a longer time to compose it, and you can hear that the arrangements and the songwriting is a little bit more different or complicated, let's say. And talking about complicated, the last song, the title song and the outro of the album, which is called the title, Under the Midnight Sun, that could be a song straight out of a James Bond movie. I don't really like that song, but it's nicely done. It's super, super cool. It has strings and stuff like that. So, I feel they went the extra mile with the songwriting here, and maybe it's because they had more time because of COVID or stuff like that. The name comes from Finland. It's inspired by the sun never going down. I know that very well from Iceland. That can be very magical. So maybe they had some of that Nordic magic in this album. The positives about this, I think, it's kind of authentic. You know, it's them doing what they wanted to do. It's not them doing what they thought we wanted to hear. And in that sense, it's quite brave. It has a great sound. I really like the sound quality, and the mix is really good. You hear all the instruments very well. The singing is amazing. At some point, I thought Mark Lanigan, rest in peace, and Jan Astbury is starting to sound more like him, and that's a really great place to be as a singer. And yeah, I found that the songwriting was good, and it's not too long, so I never felt like, with a lot of indie rock albums, I feel like I heard this song 3 times on this album. That doesn't happen with this one, so it never kind of feels like the same stuff. Now, the negatives, obviously, as I said, I mean, this is not the cult that I fell in love with. This is not the stuff where I was drinking moonshine and getting wasted with my friends listening to Sweet Soul Sister or Little Devil. But on the other hand, maybe that's not what the band wanted to make, and that's not what the band has been all about, you know. And I'm missing a little bit in the guitar. I mean, the guitar sound is cool, and it's not pure indie. It's a little bit on top of the indie guitar sound that we are used to, I would say. But I'm missing a little bit of kind of raw rockness and that stuff that Billy Duffy said that he on purpose left out. For me, it would have been great that he would have left some of it in. Ironically, the three songs that I actually liked in the beginning of this album, like from the first listening, were the songs that are least like the old cult and least rock guitars, more kind of indie electronic somehow. So it's a weird thing. So I started thinking, okay, before I judge this album, if this was a different band, if this wasn't the band that made Sonic Temple, Love, and Electric, would I like this album? And the answer is yes, I would actually like this album. So I'm gonna give it 7.5. Closer to 8 than 7. 7.5, that's in the middle. And I would get it if you're an old cult fan like me, that you wouldn't like this because your expectation would be something else. But if you're someone who's kind of been browsing their whole catalog, I think you will like this album. And if you like indie rock, you will love this album, that's for sure. As I said, the catalog is broader, so this is not like an odd one out. Give it a chance. These bands have to have the creative freedom and the chance to move on. They cannot recreate the same stuff over and over again. I feel that they did that. Give it 3-4 listens for sure. It needs a little bit more love. It's not love at first listen. What else? Rick Rubin, Slayer and Run DMC. He produced those two bands. So if you got it right and you put it in the comment before I told you this, I don't know how to track that. Could win this cap, but you have to pick it up here in Prague in the Czech Republic. It's a nice city to visit though. So please feel free to share this, comment, tell me what you think about this album, previous albums, what were your expectations. Let other people know about this if they're into this band. I think a lot of people will be surprised. I think it's an album we have to give a chance. 7.5. See you guys, have a nice time.